Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills, and as promised, I'm going to talk a little bit finally about Fizzband's Treasury of Dragons and some of the things I've noticed in it that I haven't yet heard anyone else mention. Um, this came out like right before Strixhaven came out, and Strixhaven kind of sucked up all the controversial oxygen in the room, so to say, and so I kind of feel like this book got a chance to kind of sneak under the radar in terms of what people have been nitpicking over these last few months, in terms of the slow crumbling downfall of Wizards of the Coast's 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. I'll say right off the bat, this might end up being remembered as the last functional 5th edition source book, because the bulk of it is just stat blocks for dragons and like tips and suggestions on how to roleplay dragon NPCs and other relatively practical but not terribly original material for it. Things I find interesting, like there's lots of little hints of Dragonlance throughout it. I mean, right off the bat, you got the name Fizzban on the cover, and it's got stats on Draconians, and one tiny little paragraph that I've seen that addresses the world of Krynn, that says that it's a planet that's been racked by wars between the followers of Bahamut and Tiamat, which I'm not a Dragonlance fan, but there's something a bit off about Dragonlance being about a war between Bahamut and Tiamat. I can't quite place my finger on it. Also like a teeny tiny little paragraph on the blood of Io from Council of Worms. This could have been an opportunity to just kind of like backdooring Council of Worms, and possibly the greatest disappointment is no attempt at all, despite all this stuff on customizing dragon NPCs and role-playing dragon NPCs. There's like nothing you really hear in terms of guidelines of actually trying to have like a game where people are actually playing dragons. It does have a section on Dragonborn at the beginning that gives you some slight Dragonborn variants, so like if you're Dragonborn that's metallic or chromatic or gem dragon themed, and it does bring back gem dragons. Because D&D has very branded specific looks to their dragons and their setting, their choices for how the gem dragons look. I mean, aesthetically as art, okay, fine, whatever, fantasy, but these are also supposed to be something that like theoretically can be turned into practical models, so they can be used as miniatures for people who like using minis in their Dungeons and Dragons games, and yet their depictions of gem dragons, like the dorsal spines that run down their back, all kind of float like little crystal shards that float above them, and their horns will have parts where they break, and then there's another section of horn that's just kind of free floating. And I'm just kind of curious how exactly you're going to pull that off with little plastic minis. Like I say, like most of it is just, a functional source book with some stats on gem dragons and some other variant dragon types, ghost dragons, you get deep dragons. Possibly of the things I looked through, the thing I thought was the most interesting was dragons that have been taken over by illithid elder brains. That's creepy and scary and could be like an interesting twist to have a more potent illithid boss for an illithid colony that's not just a brain sitting there in a tank just waiting to be hit. It actually makes it mobile and more threatening. But the thing I think has kind of slipped under everyone's radar here on this is that there's a couple pages about dragon reproduction. Now, right off the bat, it doesn't give you like a standardized version of like how dragons reproduce. It instead gives you like an optional table of suggestions of how you can decide you want dragons to create more baby dragons in your universe. And not a single one of them is sexual. The only one that close even resembles actual natural ways that creatures will reproduce is parthenogenesis. And so, with little fanfare, they've kind of like made all dragons female, or possibly just genderless, gender fluid, gender neutral creatures. With if they're not, if they don't need sexual dimorphism in order to be able to like recombine their genes to make a new generation of dragon eggs, then there's really no need for males. And so I guess them having a male or female persona is just kind of a personal choice for dragons in this setting. Um, but you know, they have things where, like, you know, like the dragon can die and then there's an egg there after it crumbles apart, or God, like there's a magical tree in the center of the world that grows dragon eggs like fruit. Like all of them are quirky, like magic heavy, mythical, like creatures born from their own navel kind of shit going on. They're no longer animals, you know. And then also, like the half dragons, they have a similar little blurb. You know, just like, you know, you're a half dragon because you're bathed in dragon blood, or a dragon bestows power upon you. You know, just apparently for some reason they've just decided that dragons don't fuck anymore. So there you go. It's just like I said, it's subtle. I haven't heard anyone else mention that as a thing, but I mean, you know, yeah, there's really no need for either gender of dragon if all dragons are capable of reproducing in whatever weird, arcane, mystical, made-up way you decide to go with, or you've randomly rolled off their table. The other things about this book is that, you know, the Dragonlance tidbits are kind of interesting in that, like, the timing of when this book was first put in production was probably when, you know, Wizards of the Coast still thought they were going to be relaunching Dragonlance, and so that might explain why there's some Dragonlance isms in this. Of course, in the time since then, there's, of course, the issues with Weiss and Hickman suing TSR because they kept screwing them around with their, you know, draft revisions for the new novel, of which also, like, out of nowhere, a couple days ago, I noticed there's a new Dragonlance novel that's now noted on Amazon that's going to be going on sale in late August of 2022. It's, like, labeled as Classic Dragonlance, but I don't recognize the title, but I was never a huge Dragonlance fan, so I'm assuming that, you know, like maybe Dragons of Deceit was already a book and they're just re-releasing it. I just don't know why you would reprint it in hardcover like that. And also, like, a bit more of an ethnically diverse cast of characters on the cover of that book than, you know, like the old Dragonlance books from the 80s. So I'm not sure about that one. As I say, I'm not at all by any stretch a Dragonlance fan. But it makes me wonder exactly what happened with the settlement that Hickman and Weiss had with Wizards of the Coast. I mean, obviously there's going to be some sort of non-disclosure agreement that came along with all that. So, you know, like, word of exactly what happened or how much they got paid off or what exactly was the deal is unknown, but it might be an indication that they at least, you know, like, got permission to go ahead and at least put the damn book out that they had already spent money, invested time on putting together, so they can at least recoup their losses, maybe. You know, also, like, for some weird reason, at the very beginning of it, right before the section on Dragonborn, it once again, like, has an insert about changing character creation so that you basically just get some bonuses that you can put in whatever attributes you want, which I guess that's, you know, a pretty strong sign of what, you know, the 5.5 edition, the D&D Evolution game, is going to be. A couple days ago, I had done a video of just kind of raw speculation that, you know, what if D&D Evolution is going to be like a virtual reality metaverse kind of thing, which is possible. I mean, there's logic to it, but I don't seriously think that's really what it's going to be. Calling it, since it's a 5.5 and they just don't want to call it a 5.5, rebranding it as D&D Evolution, you know, probably is just marketing so that, you know, they can scoop more people into rebuying books they already own that have had minor changes. I can't remember the exact release date, if it was 2023 or 2024. I want to say I heard that D&D Evolution was supposed to come out in 2024. And if all it is just a slightly revised version of the player's handbook where now you get to put, you know, character attribute bonuses wherever you want instead of having them being set by the specific race you choose, and possibly including the custom character shit out of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and little revisions to the text on the various, like, playable monster races so that they seem less racist and all that kind of stuff. I just don't see why that's going to take that long. Like, it's not like it needs to be play tested. So, you know, like, why do we need another 2-3 years before we get to see this product? But from the sounds of it, like just going by like stuff that you see in books like this and some of the other more recent things. Um, yeah. Oh, another thing I think that they're probably going to end up putting in the 5.5 edition that is in this is oddly something that first appeared in Mythic Odysseys of Theros and Ravnica, where you have like some extra layer of empowerment in the form of a gift, either from a supernatural entity or because of some sort of dark heritage, like in the Ravenloft, the newer Ravenloft book. Or in this, you have dragon gifts, where your character's been empowered somehow by the touch of a dragon, which I mean, is all right. I mean, like in some ways, it's not bad to have like other bits of flavor to make your character unique and mix things up and how you combine your race, class, your character's background, character's gift. It can give you more variations to decrease the chance that two people have the exact same character playing at the exact same time. But I've always been of the philosophy that like my major uh, negative opinion about 5th edition from the get-go is that the player character's power curve just goes up too far too fast and is just kind of just gets a little ridiculous. It's not as bad as it was in 4th edition. At least in 5th edition, you still feel like there's some purpose to playing a magic user, as opposed to 4th edition, where everyone gets weird special powers that are all basically on par with each other at each level, kind of just basically evening everything out. So, like, I don't know, there's like dark gifts. It's like great, more starting spells and special abilities, like for characters that are already chock full of starting spells and special abilities. I don't really know how much we need that. Um, but like I said, like in terms of just as a functional source book, it is that. If you're looking for a bunch of stat blocks for some interesting dragon variants and dragon related creatures, it's got that. You might like the write up for the variants on Dragonborn and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, this could be remembered as the last semi-functional, usable D&D source book. Also, at least it's not like all filled up with a bunch of adventure modules and adventure outlines. Um, it does like also another thing that I noticed that it's kind of similar to Mythic Odysseys of Theros and Ravnica, where it gives you like a whole bunch of like generic layer maps for like what kind of generic standard layer that each type of dragon would have, similar to how like gives you like the basic temple layout for each of the gods of Theros, or some sort of facility or base that the various guilds in Ravnica use. It's the exact same kind of style used here. I mean, I don't know, like a B minus maybe grade on this. The woke isms that are in it like are underwhelming, and we've already seen them largely in other products. As I say, I think the most significant change is if you, like I said, if you pay attention to the section on reproduction, it kind of like it's transgenderized all the dragons in the setting, kind of in a backdoor fashion. Also, like, just the classic thing of like, why do we need so many fucking species of dragons anyway? Like, isn't just the one kind of dragon dangerous and cool enough? Like, do we, like, when you go back to like the map of Faerun and the Sword Coast, you get an area of land that's roughly like the size of France or Germany, as what's depicted on the main map. Like, you would really have like what, 16, 18 different species of dragons all cohabitating? How is there any food left? Like, what the fuck are they eating? Oh, apparently they're eating treasure raw, so because if you can eat enough treasure, you can have a baby. I don't know. If it were me, I'd rather have seen just a full-on like reboot of Council of Worms, because then you could have conveyed all sorts of information on dragon society and dragon culture and dragon variants. But also have like given something a bit more meaty for game masters to play with. A cleaned up Blood of Io setting, since the original Council of Worms box sets had some problems, and because of it being rushed out, the setting was never really well developed at all. and the maps had been mislabeled, and some of the islands were named kind of backwards of where they're supposed to be. Like, for some reason, Blood Tide Islands on the far side of the archipelago from the Blood Sea and all that kind of stuff. It was just rushed out. It was a hack job. Questionably playable even when it comes down to it. But, if you're going to be doing a whole book on dragons, like, why not? Are they not able to copyright Council of Worms as a title anymore? Because of the spelling, do they not want people to associate it with the worm from the World of Darkness games? Also, I mean, like, it's relatively thin, especially considering the price they ask for these fucking things. So, I don't know. It's definitely a better buy than Strixhaven. At least it's not an adventure module. I liked it more than Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Like, I don't know. It's not necessary. The chromatic and metallic dragons are enough. If you're really curious about the gem dragons or having deep dragons, or they have like a Feywild dragon here, like, I guess you could potentially find some use in those if you're just dragoned out and are just bored with the whatever 12 to 14 dragons that are already there. But I don't know. Complete total woke garbage? No. And like I said, I kind of feel it's almost interesting that what they've done with dragon reproduction, that they haven't made more of a deal out of, because here's an opportunity to pat themselves in the back, for having struck a blow against the gender binary by having non-binary dragons featured as the signature villain of Dungeons and Dragons. God, who knows what they're actually going to do when they finally put out a book about dungeons. Well, anyway, I guess for now that's Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. A glimpse into a Dragonlance relaunch that never happened, and so maybe potentially it's like there might be things that are missing from this that were going to be in it. Little hints of Dragonlance can be found in this book. Dragonlance, where the armies of Bahamut and Tiamat have famously been battling for ages for control of the planet and the destiny of mankind. Who's Takisis, you say? Well, we don't have the full, complete control of her copyright, so I have no idea who Takisis is. Like I said, like it's a B grade. I wouldn't call this like A-list books. It's not one of the worst. Because like I said, at least there is the functionality of actually like giving you like a bunch of game stats for some interesting, dragon concepts or super dragons, great worms, all that kind of shit. Undead dragons beyond just Draco Liches. I kind of like the Dragonborn section. I feel like could have had more actual like information on Dragonborn culture, but because it's still trying to be generically formatted to be usable for multiple D&D settings, I guess that's why there's not that much of it. Although that's something I would have liked. There's like a chapter on some dragon magic or a bunch of spells that basically are just could be any other spell but has a specific dragon NPC's name attached to the spell, so yay. I don't know. I guess this is kind of a middle of the road review in some ways. I mean, like, it could be worse, but it could be better. And maybe that's the problem. Like, this far down the line, these books should be polished little gems that exactly are giving, the game masters and stuff what they want. There's still something kind of like wishy-washy and non-committal about some of this. And, I don't know if they're trying to justify like the non-sexual dragons as like, well, this is supposed to be a kid's game, so we don't want to be like too overtly talking about, like dragons getting it on to make more baby dragons. And yet at the same time, there's the Strixhaven game, which apparently has mechanics that encourage your characters to cheat on each other romantically in order to be able to gain social status or social points or something like that. I don't know. I'm not likely to check out Strixhaven just on the basis of the fact that like apparently only like 40 pages of it are actually setting information, and the rest is a bunch of adventure outlines. You know, at least Mythic Odysseys and Theros and Ravnica, while they have their issues, at least most of the book was setting related information and, you know, like creatures and stuff, and maybe would have a chapter at the end that gave you an adventure outline and not the other way around. So, you know, as a source book, this is at least a source book. I mean, and as always, you can ignore the things in it that you don't like. You know, you can give your dragons gigantic penises that they, you know, use all across the land, making little baby dragons if you want, and completely ignore that little section on reproduction. I just found it a little subtle thing that after reading that, it was just like, wait a minute. I mean, most animals that engage in parthenogenesis are female, so I guess all dragons are chicks. Which could be cool. I like chicks. Anyway, tell me in the comments below what you think about dragon chicks and trans dragon issues. You got something to say about Dragonlance? Have you heard anything about the, you know, what might have happened with the lawsuit settlement? It could be as good of a place to discuss that as any in the comments section below. Hit like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year. Go away now.